Joining us now in studio is Riggs Eckelberry. Riggs is the CEO of a company called OriginClear Incorporated. OCLN is their stock symbol. Riggs, always great to see you.
It's a pleasure.
Well, Riggs, we've been talking to you for a little while, but for those who are seeing us for the first time, why don't you tell us again what the company does?
Sure. OriginClear has been a public company for 10 years, soon 11 years. And we have pioneered a technology to treat water that otherwise would not be treated. We're talking about very muddy, oily water, like produced water from oil production or landfill black water. So we make water clear so it doesn't clog the filters and it can actually be clean. So that's very, very important. Now, along the way, we also started acquiring companies, and we have a very successful operating company down in Texas.
Nice.
And of course, most recently, we've started a blockchain venture, WaterChain.
Well, tell us about that, because that has been very exciting to watch.
WaterChain is a fascinating concept where, basically water is life. We know this. Yet there's a water crisis in the world. There are technologies to handle it, and yet those technologies are not being fully applied today. And we saw the blockchain as a way to rapidly scale up on-site water treatment by the people who have the problem, as opposed to relying on some municipality that may or may not be able to do the job. Maybe they're overwhelmed by population growth, or maybe the infrastructure is falling apart, as in the US. So there's a growth really of modular on-site water treatment. We're going to fund those, enable people to invest in those profitable water treatment and recycling ventures, and change the world rapidly that way.
Well, let's talk about that, because you once made a really profound statement to me in an email that I never forgot, where you said that change in the water industry moves at a glacial pace, and yet you're looking at WaterChain as a way to increase the rapidity of that. Tell us how that's going to work. Yeah,
well, structurally, and this is something we learned in our licensing business, where it took us several years to get where we are today, which is commercialized. And we realized that the best technologies are held up by really legitimate concerns. When you have a centralized system, then it's big, it's multi-billion dollars, it takes a long time. It's like a mainframe where you can have a bunch of PCs really fast. Or, in Africa, where they didn't even bother to have landline systems, they went straight to cell phones. Rapid deployment, instant coverage, and that's what we need to do in the water industry, is really make the water treatment happen at the point of pollution.
Now, you mentioned, we've talked about this before, but I think it's worth repeating. Israel recycles about 80% of their water. I think you said Spain is in second place, around 20%. The U.S. is lagging way behind, around 1%. How can we change that?
Well, by allowing the point treatment of water, the water being treated where it's being soiled, by a factory, by agriculture, by commerce, by allowing that to happen there, they'll have a natural incentive to recycle it, because they have the problem, they have the water, they might as well reuse it. And so, as opposed to relying on municipalities, and then it becomes a big political football, do we want toilet to top, and the big debate going on in San Diego right now, basically it's something that we can handle right at the margins where the use of the water is happening, and recycle it.
Of course, you're a busy guy. People are trying to get a hold of you as you're conducting this interview, but what's new since we last spoke?
Well, in fact, there's a little bit of coverage of yesterday's meeting at our headquarters, where we welcomed a strategic partner of ours, an advisor, David Metzler, and he is an experienced investment banker, venture capitalist. He's been a CEO of a major venture capital funded company in the health industry. He was in the Navy, worked for the Earth Institute in Ghana.
Wow.
So he's just the right profile for someone who can both get things done financially and has the heart to really make these human missions happen.
So it really comes down to access to capital to get these things into place, because nothing can happen unless there's capital behind it.
That's so true. So what is the capital mechanism? We love the whole idea of using crypto as a new way to fund things and really take people's money to directly apply it where it's needed. Africa, of course, but what about Flint, Michigan? What about where we are, right? And there are problems in developed countries that must be solved while we're also helping the rest of the world.
Well, Flint was just in the news this week where they're ending the bottled water program here very soon, and you think to yourself, wait a minute, the water is still not good coming out of the tap.
it's still a problem. And what's the solution? Not to rebuild the central infrastructure.
Right.
It's just enable people to treat water where they are.
Exactly.
It's so simple.
Once again, OriginClear, OCLN, exciting company. Riggs, always a pleasure having you on the program.
Thank you, Don.